I treated his 19-year-old cousin like my own sister, so I never hesitated when he asked to have her over, but I never imagined that my blind trust would be my own undoing. Creeping into the bedroom at dawn, what I witnessed left me too paralysed to even speak. He still thinks I'm miles away in another city, completely unaware that he drove the final nail into the coffin of our perfect marriage last night. But why did this happen to me despite all the love I gave? How long has this secret affair actually been going on behind my back? And where does this charade of a marriage end? Hey guys, this is Sneha. Stay with me as we dive into the full details of this heartbreaking story of trust and betrayal. They say the devil doesn't come to you with horns and a pitchfork. He comes to you disguised as everything you've ever wanted. He comes with a smile that lights up the room, a touch that sets your skin on fire, and a promise of forever that feels so real you'd bet your life on it. I bet my life on Ryan. And I lost. If you looked at our life from the outside, you'd hate us. Seriously, we were that couple. We've been married for exactly 2 years and 3 months. In the world of modern relationships where people swipe left faster than they order coffee, 2 years feels like a lifetime. But for us, it felt like we were still in the honeymoon phase. We live in a gorgeous 2-bedroom condo in downtown Toronto, right near the waterfront. You know, the kind of place with floor-to-ceiling windows where you can stand with a glass of wine and watch the city lights shimmer off the lake, thinking, I made it. I'm a senior executive at a major multinational IT firm, and the pay is great, the pressure is high, and the hours are long. Ryan, my husband, is an architect at a boutique private firm. He designs dream homes for millionaires. He has this artistic, brooding charm, dark hair, intense eyes, and hands that always smell like cedar wood and expensive drafting paper. We were the power couple our friends envied. Our physical chemistry? Electric. It wasn't just good. It was the kind of connection that makes you late for work in the mornings. Mentally, we were in sync. We finished each other's sentences. We had the same taste in movies, the same politics, the same drive to succeed. Every weekend was an adventure. If it wasn't a long drive up to Muskoka to catch the fall colours, it was a dinner date at the newest, most impossible to get into restaurant on King Street. I remember one specific Friday night about a month ago. We were sitting on our balcony, wrapped in a blanket, fighting the crisp Canadian wind. Ryan pulled me close, kissing the top of my head, and whispered, you know, babe, I don't know how I got this luck. You, this view, this life, it's perfect. I believed him. God, I believed him so much it hurts to even think about it now. I didn't see the acting. I didn't see the cracks. I was too busy staring at the beautiful facade he had built, never realising the foundation was rotting away. The only downside to my seemingly perfect life was the travel. My job required me to be on the move. At least once or twice a month I had to fly out, sometimes to Montreal, sometimes to New York or out west to Vancouver. I hated leaving him. I'd feel this heavy guilt in my chest every time I dragged my suitcase out of the closet. I hate sleeping in this big bed alone, Ryan would say, giving me that puppy dog look that melted my heart. It's too quiet without you. And that's where she comes in. His cousin, let's call her Chloe. Chloe is 19. She's a sophomore at the University of Toronto, studying something vague like liberal arts. She's his first cousin, his mother's sister's daughter, blood-related, family. She has that effortless Gen Z vibe, oversized hoodies, messy bun, and a face fresh enough that she doesn't need makeup. Since the very beginning of our marriage, whenever I had to leave town for work, Ryan would suggest having Chloe over. She's stuck in that tiny dorm room with a roommate she hates, Ryan had reasoned the first time. Why doesn't she just crash here in the guest room while you're gone? She can study in peace, I can cook us dinner, and I won't be bored out of my mind missing you. It made perfect sense. In fact, I encouraged it. I loved the idea that my husband was a family man, that he cared about his younger cousin. I viewed her like a little sister. I'd even leave the fridge stocked with her favourite snacks, Greek yogurt, berries, those expensive organic sodas before I left for the airport. I wanted them to be comfortable. Looking back now, I feel like vomiting. I was literally catering my own funeral. I remember vividly how I would text them from my hotel room. Hey guys, did you order pizza? Don't let Ryan eat all the pepperoni. And she would reply, haha, don't worry sis, we're watching Netflix, miss you. Sis, she called me sis. The audacity of that word cuts through me now like a knife. The dynamic became a routine. I pack my bag. Chloe comes over with her backpack full of textbooks and I leave for the airport feeling relieved that Ryan isn't lonely. I was so secure in my marriage, so blinded by trust that the thought of anything inappropriate happening never even crossed my mind. Why would it? That's incest. That's taboo. That's sick. Ryan was a gentleman, a professional, a loving husband. And Chloe, she was just a kid, or so I thought. Last week, my boss called me into his office on a Thursday afternoon. We have a crisis with the client in Vancouver, he said, skipping the pleasantries. I need you there. Saturday night flight. You'll probably be stuck there until Wednesday. I sighed, already mentally calculating the laundry and packing I needed to do. Okay, I'm on it. That evening, I broke the news to Ryan over dinner. We were having sushi at the dining table. When I told him I'd be gone for 3, maybe 4 days, I watched his face closely. For a split second, a microsecond really, I saw a flicker in his eyes. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't annoyance. It was excitement, but it vanished so quickly. I convinced myself, I imagine. He immediately put on his supportive husband mask. Oh, that sucks, babe, he said, dipping a spicy tuna roll into soy sauce. 3 days? That's a long one. I know, I groaned. I really don't want to go. The weather in Vancouver is going to be rainy and miserable. Ryan chewed thoughtfully, then wiped his mouth with a napkin. Well, work is work. You got to do what you got to do. I guess I should call Chloe. She mentioned she had some midterms coming up. Maybe she can use the quiet space to study. Yeah, of course, I said without a second's hesitation. Tell her to come over Saturday evening after I leave. I'll make sure the guest room sheets are fresh. You're the best, he smiled, that dazzling, dimpled smile that used to make my knees weak. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'll miss you like crazy, though. I'll miss you too. Saturday arrived in a blur of chaos. I was running around the apartment, throwing blazers and heels into my carry-on. Ryan was being incredibly helpful, suspiciously helpful, my subconscious whispers now. But at the time, I just thought he was being sweet. He made me coffee. He double-checked my flight status. He even packed my toiletries bag for me. Make sure you take the melatonin, he said, zipping up my suitcase. You know you can never sleep on plane. Thanks, honey. I checked my watch. I need to call an Uber. It's getting late. I'd drive you, he said, looking apologetic, but I have that Zoom call with the contractors in 30 minutes. No, don't be silly. Uber is fine. You stay and get your work done before Chloe gets here. I dragged my suitcase to the front door. I put on my coat and turned to say goodbye. Ryan walked up to me, wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me in for a long, deep kiss. It was passionate, intense. It felt like he was trying to memorize the taste of me. Call me when you land, he murmured against my lips. I will. And behave yourself in Vancouver, he teased, a playful glint in his eye. Or always love you more. I walked out the door, the heavy smart lock clicking shut behind me with a mechanical whir. I rode the elevator down to the lobby, my phone buzzing with the notification that my Uber had arrived. As I stepped out into the cool Toronto evening, I looked up at our balcony on the 18th floor one last time. The lights were on. It looked warm, safe. I had no idea that as my Uber pulled away, heading toward the Gardner Expressway, I was leaving my life behind. I had no idea that the man waving goodbye to me in his mind was already preparing the stage for something unforgivable. The flight to Vancouver was long and turbulent, and I tried to read, tried to work, but I ended up just staring out the window at the darkness. I had this strange nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. You know that feeling when you think you've forgotten to turn off the stove? It was like that, but deeper. I shook it off. Stop it, I told myself. You're just stressed about the meeting. I landed in Vancouver late. By the time I got to my hotel, it was 2 a.m. Toronto time. I sent a quick text to Ryan. Landed. Checking in now. Too tired to call. Hope you and Chloe are okay. Love you. I watched the screen. The message status changed to delivered. Usually he replies instantly, even if he's asleep. The buzz wakes him up. But this time, nothing. 5 minutes past 10. Read at 2:14 a.m. Still no reply. I frowned. Maybe they're watching a movie and he doesn't want to disturb the vibe, I reasoned. Or maybe he just fell back asleep immediately after reading it. I put the phone on the nightstand, stripped off my travel clothes and crawled into the crisp hotel. The room was cold, empty and silent. I closed my eyes trying to picture Ryan in our warm bed back home. I imagined him sleeping soundly, perhaps with the TV on low volume. If only I knew what was actually happening in that apartment while I lay there, thousands of miles away, missing him. If only I knew that the silence on his end wasn't sleep. It was something else entirely. The next morning, Sunday, the madness began. I woke up early for my meetings. The Vancouver rain was hammering against the window. I checked my phone. One text from Ryan sent at 9 a.m. Toronto time. Glad you made it safe, babe. Sorry, fell asleep hard last night. Chloe made pasta. We're just chilling. Good luck with the meeting. It seemed normal, casual. But looking back, the text felt curated, too polished. My meetings ran long. The client was difficult. The project was behind schedule and my head was pounding. By the time I got a break, it was noon in Vancouver, 3 p.m. in Toronto. I needed to hear his voice. I needed that grounding connection. I dialed his number. It rang and rang and rang. Voicemail. I frowned. It was Sunday afternoon. He shouldn't be busy. Maybe he was in the shower. Maybe they went out for groceries. I waited 15 minutes. I paced around the hotel room, sipping lukewarm coffee. I called again. Ring, ring, ring. Pick up, Ryan, pick up. Finally, on the last ring, the line clicked open. Hello! His voice, it sounded off, breathless, sleepy, or was it startled? And in the background, for just a fraction of a second before he must have covered the mouthpiece or moved to another room, I heard something. A giggle. A high-pitched, unmistakable giggle. And then silence. Ryan? I asked, my grip tightening on the phone. Is everything okay? The pause that followed lasted a heartbeat too long, and in that heartbeat, the first true crack in my perfect reality appeared. The suspicion I had buried deep down began to claw its way to the surface. Yeah, everything's fine, he finally replied, his voice smoothing out into that charming tone I knew so well. But I wasn't buying it this time. Something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong yet. Yeah, everything's fine. Ryan's voice came through the speaker, but it felt thin, brittle, like he was trying too hard to sound normal, and in doing so, he sounded anything but. I stood by the window of my hotel room in Vancouver, staring out at the grey, weeping skyline. The rain was relentless, blurring the view of the harbour, mirroring the sudden fog that was rolling into my mind. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. You sound out of breath, I said, trying to keep my tone casual, but failing. Were you working out? There was a pause, a hesitation. In a marriage, you learn the rhythm of your partner's silence. You know the I'm thinking about dinner silence, the I'm mad at you silence, and the I'm distracted by work silence. This was different. This was the silence of someone quickly scanning their brain for a plausible lie. Yeah, he stammered slightly, followed by a forced chuckle. Yeah, exactly. Just doing some push-ups in the living room, trying to get the blood flowing, you know? It's a lazy Sunday. Push-ups. Ryan hated home workouts. He was a gym snob. He needed the machines, the atmosphere, the specific lighting. He never worked out in the living room. Never. Oh, I said, my heart rate ticking up a notch. I thought I heard laughing. Is Chloe there? Chloe? Oh yeah, she's in the kitchen making a smoothie or something. You know how loud that blender is. The blender? I listened. The background on his end was dead silent. No whir of a motor, no clinking of glass, no footsteps, just a heavy, suffocated quiet. Right. I murmured. So, how is she? Is she studying? Yeah, totally buried in books, Ryan said, his voice gaining a bit more confidence now that he had a narrative. Poor kid is stressed about her history midterms. I'm just trying to keep the noise down for her. Poor kid. The phrase grated on my nerves. Why did he sound so protective, so intimate? Well, tell her I said hi, I said, checking my watch. My lunch break was almost over. I had to get back to the boardroom in 10 minutes. I just wanted to check in. The meeting is going okay, I guess. It's intense. I waited for him to ask more. Usually, Ryan would ask about the client and about the specific design challenges I was facing, or at least offer some encouraging words like, you're a rock star, you got this. Instead, he pivoted hard. That's good, babe, he said, rushing the words. Hey, listen, you made it there safely, right? The flight was okay? Yes, Ryan, I texted you last night, remember? Right, sorry. My brain is mush. He laughed again, that nervous, jarring sound. So, just to confirm, your return ticket is for Tuesday night, right? The red eye. I frowned. We had discussed this 3 times before I left. I had put the itinerary in our shared Google Calendar. Yes, I said slowly. Tuesday night. I land in Toronto Wednesday morning around 6 a.m. Why? No reason. The answer came too quickly. Just checking. I want to make sure I'm, awake. Or maybe I can pick you up. Yeah, I'll pick you up. You don't have to, I said, confused. It's a work day. I can just Uber. No, I insist, he pressed. So Wednesday morning, definitely not before then, right? I mean, there's no chance you'll finish early? The question hung in the air between us, heavy and loaded. There's no chance you'll finish early? Who asks that? Usually a husband asks. Is there any chance you can come home sooner? I miss you. Ryan was asking if there was any chance I would come home sooner, as if he needed to know the deadline, the expiration date on his freedom. I don't think so, I said, testing him. The client is pretty demanding. Why? Do you have plans? Plans, me? No, he scoffed. Just work and managing Chloe. I just want to make sure the house is tidy before you get back. Tidy? I raised an eyebrow, even though he couldn't see me. Ryan, we have a cleaner coming on Monday. The house is always tidy. Yeah, well, you know me, a little OCD. He was rambling now, spiralling. I could feel his anxiety radiating through the phone lines, travelling 3,000 miles from Toronto to Vancouver. Okay, Ryan, I said, suddenly exhausted. The strange undercurrent of this conversation was draining me. I have to go. My boss is waving at me. Okay, go kill it, babe. Love you, I said, and it was a reflex, automatic. Yeah, you too. He hung up. He didn't say love you too. He just said, yeah, you too. I stared at the black screen of my phone. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Unrelated to the hotel's air conditioning, something was wrong. My gut was screaming at me. Is he cheating? The thought popped into my head. Unbidden and ugly. I immediately tried to shove it away. No, not Ryan. He's obsessed with me. We're happy. And who would he cheat with? He's home all weekend with... My breath hitched. With Chloe? No. I shook my head violently, as if to physically dislodge the thought. That's disgusting. She's his cousin. She's a child. That's impossible. I forced myself to go back into the meeting room. I forced a smile onto my face. I shook hands, presented slides, argued about budget allocations. But my mind was back in Toronto. It was drifting through the rooms of my apartment, looking for clues I might have missed. The rest of the day passed in a blur of paranoia. I checked my phone every 5 minutes. No texts from Ryan, no random memes, no photos of his dinner. Usually he'd send me a picture of whatever he cooked. Look, I didn't burn the steak. Or Chloe made pasta. Looks decent today. Radio silent. By the time I got back to my hotel room that evening, it was 9 p.m. in Vancouver, which meant it was midnight in Toronto. I debated calling him again. If I called now and he didn't answer, I would spiral. If I called now and he did answer but sounded weird again, I wouldn't sleep. I decided to text instead, a test. Hey, just got in. Exhausted. How was your day? Did Chloe head back to her dorm or is she staying the night? I watched the bubbles appear, then disappear, then appear again. He was typing, deleting, typing. Finally, a reply came. Hey, honey, long day here too. Yeah, Chloe is crashing here again. It got late and we were watching a movie. Didn't want her taking an Uber alone at night. She's in the guest room. We're heading to bed now. Sleep tight. She's in the guest room. Why did he feel the need to specify that? She's in the guest room. It felt like a defensive statement, like he was answering an accusation I hadn't even made. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I threw my phone onto the other bed and walked into the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. Dark circles were forming under my eyes. I looked tired, vulnerable. You're crazy, I told my reflection. You're being a jealous, insecure wife. He's doing a nice thing for his family. Stop reading into things. But the seed of doubt had been planted and it was growing fast. The next day, Monday, was pivotal. I woke up with a singular focus, finished the job. I went into the client's office with a relentless energy and I didn't want to be there until Wednesday. I didn't want to be there another minute. I needed to get home. I needed to see Ryan's face. I needed to walk into my apartment and feel the atmosphere. I needed to look Chloe in the eye. I pushed the team hard. We skipped lunch. We powered through the proposal. By 4 p.m. on Monday, we were done. The client signed off. My boss looked at me, impressed but surprised. Wow, you were on fire today. We finished a day and a half early. I have a lot to do back in Toronto, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. If we're done here, do you mind if I fly out tonight? Go for it, he said. Take the rest of the week off if you want. You earned it. My heart leaped. I'm going home. I immediately opened the airline app on my phone. My original flight was Tuesday night at 11:30 11:30 p.m. I searched for flights for tonight, Monday. There was one leaving at 10:45 p.m. It was a red-eye. It would land in Toronto at 6:15 a.m. on Tuesday morning. I hesitated. Should I tell Ryan? The logical part of me said, yes, call him. Tell him you're coming. Let him be happy. But the dark, twisting knot in my stomach said no. Surprise him, the voice whispered. Or catch him. I felt sick just thinking it. Catch him doing what? Watching TV? Sleeping in his own bed? If I show up unannounced and everything is normal, I'll feel like an idiot. I'll be the crazy wife who doesn't trust her husband. But if I show up and something is wrong, I click change flight. I paid the difference. Oh, confirmed. Seat 12A, departing Vancouver, Monday, 10:45 p.m, arriving Toronto, Tuesday, 6:15 a.m. I didn't text Ryan. I didn't call him. Instead, I sent a decoy text. Hey, babe, just finishing up dinner with the team here. Looks like we might wrap up tomorrow afternoon as planned. Can't wait for Wednesday morning. Miss you. I lied. I wanted to see his reaction. 10 minutes later, he replied, awesome. Glad it's going well. Don't work too hard. See you Wednesday. Love you. See you Wednesday. He sounded relieved. He sounded like a man who thought he had 24 more hours of privacy. I packed my bags in record time. The ride to Vancouver Airport felt like a blur. I was operating on autopilot. My body was moving, but my mind was stuck on a loop of that phone call. Your ticket is for Tuesday night, right? No chance you'll finish early. I boarded the plane. It was dark. Most people were already putting on eye masks and reclining their seats. I sat by the window staring at the wing lights blinking in the darkness. I couldn't sleep, not a wink. I spent the entire 5-hour flight staring at the flight map on the screen in front of me, watching the little plane icon inch closer and closer to Toronto. Every mile closer felt like a tightening of the noose. I had this overwhelming sense of dread. It was heavy, suffocating. I tried to distract myself with a movie, but I couldn't focus. I tried to read a book, but the words swam before my eyes. All I could think about was my apartment, my sanctuary, my bed. What was happening in my bed right now? It was 3 a.m. in Toronto. Ryan would be asleep. Was Chloe in the guest room? Or was she? I squeezed my eyes shut. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. But I couldn't stop it. The possibilities were playing out in my head like a horror movie. I remembered how touchy-feely they were sometimes, how she would playfully punch his arm and how he would ruffle her hair. I remembered a time a few months ago when we were all watching a movie and she had rested her head on his shoulder. I thought it was sweet. Now the memory made my skin crawl. Was I blind? Was I stupid? The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, jolting me out of my nightmare. Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our descent into Toronto Pearson International Airport. The local time is 6 a.m. Temperature is a cool 12 degrees Celsius. We hope you enjoyed your flight. I looked out the window. Below me, the city of Toronto was waking up, a grid of golden lights stretching out into the darkness. The CN Tower poked through the morning mist like a needle. Somewhere down there, in one of those sparkling high-rises, was my husband. My hands were shaking as the plane touched down. The wheels hit the tarmac with a screech and a thud. There's no turning back now. I unbuckled my seatbelt the second the light went off. I grabbed my bag from the overhead bin with a ferocity that startled the passenger next to me. I needed to get off this plane. I needed to get home. I power-walked through the terminal, bypassing the baggage claim since I only had carry-on. I marched straight to the Uber pickup zone. The morning air was crisp and cold. It slapped my face, waking me up fully. Where to? The Uber driver asked as I threw my bag into the back seat. I gave him my address. And please, I added, my voice trembling slightly, can you hurry? The driver nodded and pulled into traffic. We merged onto the Gardiner Expressway. The traffic was light at this hour. We were moving fast. The city skyline loomed close. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Thump, thump, thump. I pulled out my phone. No new messages from Ryan. He was likely still asleep. Good, I thought. Sleep. I want to catch you sleeping. As the car exited the highway and turned onto the familiar streets of downtown, I felt a wave of nausea. This was the street I drove down every day. That was the coffee shop we went to on Sundays. That was the park where we walked. Everything looked the same. Everything looked normal. But I knew with a terrifying certainty that my world was about to change. The car pulled up in front of our building. The glass lobby shone under the streetlights. "We're here, ma'am," the driver said. I stared at the building. "My home, thank you," I whispered. I got out of the car. The sound of the door closing echoed in the empty street. I looked up, counted the floors. 18th floor. The windows were dark. I took a deep breath, gripped the handle of my suitcase and walked toward the entrance. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I knew one thing. The perfect wife who left 3 days ago wasn't the one coming back. The woman walking into that lobby was a hunter, and she was about to find her prey. The automatic glass doors of the lobby slid open with a soft whoosh, admitting me into the sterile, climate-controlled air of my building. It was 6:45 a.m. on a Tuesday. The lobby was dead quiet, smelling faintly of lemon polish and expensive lily. Usually this place felt like a sanctuary. The marble floors, the Art Deco chandelier, the hushed atmosphere. It was the symbol of everything Ryan and I had built. We worked 80-hour weeks for this address. We sacrificed sleep, sanity and social lives to be the couple who lived here. But this morning, the luxury felt cold. It felt like a stage set for a tragedy waiting to happen. I walked toward the front desk, my suitcase wheels clicking rhythmically against the marble. The sound echoed too loudly like gunshots in a canyon. Patrick was on the night shift. He was a sweet older guy in his late 50s, always ready with a smile and a weather update. He was dozing slightly behind the high granite counter, his head propped on his hand. As I approached, he jerked awake, blinking rapidly. "Mrs. Reynolds?" he stammered, adjusting his glasses. He looked at me, then at the clock on the wall, then back at me. His eyes were wide, filled with a confusion that bordered on panic. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow. "Change your plans, Patrick," I said, trying to keep my voice light. I forced a smile, but I could feel the corners of my mouth twitching. "Decided to surprise Ryan." Patrick froze. In a normal world, a concierge would smile back and say, "That's lovely. He'll be thrilled." But Patrick didn't smile. Instead, his eyes darted to the intercom phone on his desk. His hand actually twitched towards it, a reflex he tried to suppress. "A surprise," he repeated, his voice tight. "Right, a surprise. Does Mr. Reynolds know you're here?" "Patrick," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "That's the definition of a surprise." "Of course, yes, sorry." He laughed nervously, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "It's just, well, Mr. Reynolds has a guest. I believe his cousin is staying over. I just wouldn't want you to catch them off guard. Maybe I should ring up just to let him know you're in the elevator, just so he can put the coffee on." My heart stopped. Why was he trying to warn them? Why was the doorman of my building acting like an accomplice? I leaned over the counter, my eyes locking onto his. "Patrick, do not touch that phone." The command came out sharper than I intended. It was cold, authoritative, my executive voice. Patrick flinched. He pulled his hand back as if the phone were red hot. "I want to surprise my husband," I said, spacing out the words for emphasis. "If you call him, you ruin it, and if you ruin it, I will be very, very unhappy. Do we understand each other?" Patrick swallowed hard. He looked pale. "Yes, ma'am, of course, my lips are sealed. Thank you." I turned away from the desk and walked toward the elevators. My blood was boiling. Patrick knew. He knew something was going on up there. You don't get that nervous just because a cousin is visiting. You get that nervous when you know the wife is walking into a disaster zone. I pressed the up button. The elevator doors opened instantly, revealing the mirrored interior. I stepped in and pressed 18. The door slid shut, sealing me in a metal box. The ride up to the 18th floor usually took about 20 seconds. Today, it felt like 20 years. I watched the digital numbers tick upward. 4, 5, 6. My reflection in the elevator mirror stared back at me. I looked wrecked. My mascara was slightly smudged from the humidity in Vancouver. My hair was flat on one side from the plane seat. I looked like a woman on the edge of a breakdown. "Put it together, Sneha," I whispered to the glass. "You are strong. You are smart. You are just going home." 10, 11, 12. My stomach churned. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to lean against the handrail. What if I was wrong? What if I walked in and they were just sleeping separately? What if Chloe was on the couch and Ryan was in bed? I would look like a psychopath. I would have terrified the doorman and sneaked into my own house like a thief for nothing. Please let me be wrong, I prayed. God, please let me be the crazy, jealous wife. I will take the humiliation. I will take the guilt. Just don't let it be true. 15, 16, 17, ding. The doors open. The 18th floor hallway stretched out before me. It was long, carpeted in plush grey wool and silent as a tomb. We were in unit 1804 at the very end of the hall. I stepped out. The elevator doors closed behind me, cutting off my escape route. I walked down the hall. The carpet muffled my footsteps, and I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. I reached our door. It was a heavy, solid oak door, a barrier between my past, the happy, oblivious life I had 3 days ago, and my future. I stood there for a moment, listening, silent. No music, no TV, no voices. It was 6:55 a.m. They would still be asleep. I reached into my purse, but then I stopped. I didn't need keys. We had installed the Smart Lock Pro 6 months ago. Ryan had insisted on it. It's safer, babe. Plus, we can give temporary codes to the dog walker or the cleaner or the mistress. I touched the keypad. The numbers lit up in a cool blue glow. I punched in the code 1905, our anniversary, the 19th of May. How ironic. The lock beeped cheerfully. Beep, beep. The mechanical deadbolt slid back with a heavy thunk. The sound seemed deafening in the quiet hallway. I held my breath, waiting to see if anyone inside heard it. Nothing. I turned the handle. It was cold under my palm. I pushed the door open just an inch. The familiar scent of our home wafted out, but it was different. Usually our apartment smelled of Ryan's espresso and my vanilla candles. Today it smelled stale. There was an underlying scent of something sweet and cloying, like cheap body spray mixed with the sour tang of old wine. I slipped inside. I didn't roll my suitcase in. The wheels would be too loud on the hardwood floor of the foyer. I left my suitcase in the hallway, propped against the wall. I just took my purse. I closed the door behind me, engaging the lock silently by turning the thumb turn slowly, millimetre by millimetre, so it wouldn't click. I was in. I stood in the foyer, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. To my left was the kitchen, to my right the living room, straight ahead the hallway leading to the bedroom. I took off my heels. I set them down on the rug with trembling hands. Now I was barefoot, silent. I crept toward the living room first. The morning sun was just starting to peek through the sheer curtains, casting long grey shadows across the furniture. The scene that greeted me was the first strike. The living room was a mess. Not a we watched a movie and forgot to clean up mess. It was a party. There were 2 wine glasses on the coffee table. One still had a lipstick stain on the rim, a bright cherry red lipstick. I don't wear bright red lipstick. There was a half-empty bottle of Sauvignon Blanc sitting uncorked on the floor, and there was a pizza box open with crusts scattered on the expensive Persian rug. But that wasn't what made my breath hitch. It was the throw blanket, the beige cashmere throw that my mother had given us as a wedding gift. It was usually folded neatly on the arm of the sofa. Now it was crumpled in a heap in the centre of the floor, and right next to it, a single sock, a white ankle-length sock with a little pink pom-pom on the heel. It was tiny, cute. It was Chloe's. I stared at that sock. It looked so innocent lying there, but to me, it was a smoking gun. Why was her sock in the middle of the living room floor? Why was the blanket on the floor? I looked at the sofa. The cushions were disarrayed, pushed out of place, as if 2 people had been wrestling or something else. My stomach lurched. I put a hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. Don't cry, I commanded myself. Not yet. You need to see it all. I turned away from the living room and faced the hallway. The hallway was dark. At the end of it lay the master bedroom, my sanctuary. The guest room was on the right, halfway down the hall. If Chloe was sleeping in the guest room like a normal cousin, the door would be closed or open, revealing her sleeping form. I crept down the hallway, hugging the wall. My bare feet made no sound on the hardwood. I reached the guest room door. It was wide open. I peered inside. The bed was made pristine. The duvet was smooth. The pillows were fluffed. No one had slept there. Not last night. Maybe not the night before. The air left my lungs in a rush. She wasn't in the guest room. There was only one other bed in this apartment. I turned my head slowly toward the master bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was partially ajar, just a crack. a sliver of darkness. I felt a physical pull towards that door like gravity. I didn't want to go. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to run, to turn around, to leave the apartment and never come back. I wanted to preserve the illusion. I wanted to go back to the lobby, call Ryan and pretend I had just arrived. But I couldn't. I needed the truth. I needed to burn the illusion to the ground so I could see the ashes. I walked the final 10 feet. It felt like walking to the gallows. The silence was heavy, oppressive. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen behind me. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears, a whoosh whoosh sound that drowned out everything else. I reached the door. I placed my hand on the wood. My palm was sweating. I didn't push it open immediately. I just stood there listening. And then I heard it, the sound of breathing. 2 distinct rhythms. One was a heavy, low snore. Ryan, I knew that snore. I had listened to it for over 2 years. It used to be my lullaby. Now it sounded like the growl of a monster. The other sound was softer, lighter, a gentle exhale. Foo, foo. They were both in there. Together. A wave of rage, hot and blinding, washed over me. It replaced the fear. It replaced the nausea. My hand gripped the doorframe. I wasn't the scared wife anymore. I was the witness. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the tainted air of my own home. I didn't kick the door down. I didn't yell. I did something much more terrifying. I became invisible. With the slow, calculated movement of a predator stalking its kill, I pushed the door open. The hinges were well oiled. They didn't make a sound. The gap widened. The room revealed itself. The blackout curtains were drawn, but a sliver of morning light sliced through the gap, cutting across the room like a laser. It illuminated the foot of the bed, then the middle, then the pillow. I stepped over the threshold. I was in the room, and there they were. The sight hit me with the force of a physical blow. It was worse than I imagined. It wasn't just that they were in bed together. It was the intimacy of it. Ryan was on his back, his arm thrown carelessly over his head, his chest rising and falling. He was shirtless, the sheet pulled down to his waist, and curled up against him, her head resting on his chest, her arm draped over his stomach. Was Chloe. She was wearing one of my t-shirts, an oversized vintage band tee that Ryan had bought me for my birthday. She looked peaceful. Angelic, like she belonged there. My eyes scanned the floor. Ryan's boxers were near the door. Chloe's denim shorts were on the chair. Her bra, a lacy pink thing, was hanging off the lampshade on my bedside table. My bedside table next to my wedding photo. The disrespect was so absolute, so complete, that my brain couldn't process it. I stood there frozen, just 3 feet away from the bed. I could smell them now. The scent of sex. Heavy, musky, undeniable. It filled the room, choking me. I looked at Ryan's face. He looked so innocent in sleep. The man I loved. The man I promised to grow old with. He was cuddling his cousin in our marital bed while I was supposed to be working to build our future. For a moment, I thought about grabbing the heavy glass vase from the dresser and smashing it over his head. I wanted to see him bleed. I wanted to hear him scream. My hand twitched toward the vase, but then a different thought took hold. Violence would be too easy, too quick. He would wake up, apologise, make excuses. It would be a fight. I didn't want to fight. I wanted destruction. I wanted to destroy him the way he had just destroyed me. And to do that, I needed to be smart. I needed to be cold. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. I unlocked it, swiped to the camera. Video mode. Flash off. I took a step closer. I lifted the phone. The red recording dot started to blink. 001, 002. I panned slowly across the room. The clothes on the floor. The bra on the lamp. The empty wine glass on the nightstand. And finally, the bed. I zoomed in. I got a clear shot of Ryan's face. Then I panned down to Chloe. Her face was buried in his neck, but her hair was unmistakable. I captured their entangled limbs, the intimacy, the betrayal. I held the shot for 10 seconds. 015. Then Chloe stirred. She murmured something in her sleep, shifting her leg. Her foot brushed against Ryan's calf. Ryan grunted softly and pulled her closer, his hand instinctively rubbing her back. A lover's touch. Automatic practice. I almost vomited right there on the carpet. I stopped the recording. The video was in my cloud. It was real. It was evidence. Now I had a choice. Wake them up or disappear. I looked at Ryan one last time. This was the last time I would ever see him as my husband. From this moment on, he was my enemy. And you don't warn your enemy before you attack. I lowered the phone. I backed away. 1 step, 2 steps, back into the hallway. Back into the shadows, I had the ammunition. Now I needed to get to safety before I detonated the bomb. I was standing in the shadows of my own hallway holding a digital grenade in my hand. The red numbers on my phone screen had stopped ticking, but the image burned into my retina was still playing on a loop. Ryan's hand on her back, her leg entangled with his. The familiarity, the comfort. It was a domestic scene that belonged to me, stolen and twisted into something grotesque. My heart was hammering so hard against my ribs. I was terrified they could hear it. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like a war drum in the silence of the apartment. Get out! A voice screamed in my head. Get out before you kill them both! I took one step back. My bare foot landed on the hardwood. Crack! The sound was faint, barely a whisper, but in the dead silence of the morning, it sounded like a gunshot. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up. I stopped breathing. From the bedroom, the rhythm of Ryan's snoring faltered. It stopped. There was a rustle of sheets, a heavy shift of weight on the mattress, then a groan, a sleepy, thick sound. Chloe? My blood turned to ice. He was awake, or half awake. I pressed myself flat against the wall, merging with the shadows. I was terrified, not of him hurting me physically. Ryan wasn't violent, but of the confrontation. If he saw me now, the game was over. He would beg. He would cry. He would spin a web of lies. It's not what it looks like. We were just sleeping. Nothing happened. I didn't want his lies. I didn't want his apologies. I wanted to destroy him. And to do that, I needed to vanish. I needed to be a ghost. What time is it? A female voice mumbled. Chloe, her voice was scratchy with sleep. Shh. Go back to sleep. Ryan murmured. I heard the sound of a kiss, a wet, smacking sound. It's early. Okay. The mattress springs squeaked again. The snoring resumed. Softer this time, but steady. They were back asleep. I let out a breath. I didn't know I was holding. My legs felt like jelly. I had to get out of there. Now, I moved faster this time, abandoning stealth for speed, though still staying on the balls of my feet. I glided past the open guest room door, past the bathroom, past the kitchen where the refrigerator hummed its indifferent tune. I reached the foyer. My high heels were sitting on the rug where I had left them. I didn't put them on. I scooped them up in one hand, clutching them tightly by the straps. In my other hand, I gripped my purse and my phone. The evidence. I reached the front door. This was the tricky part, the smart lock. Opening it from the inside was mechanical, but the latch was heavy. I gripped the thumb turn. Slowly, I told myself, do it like a bomb disposal expert. I turned it millimetre by millimetre. Click, click, thunk. The deadbolt retracted. I pushed the handle down. The door unsealed with a soft, sticky sound of the weather stripping peeling apart. I slipped through the crack, sliding my body out into the corridor. I pulled the door shut behind me. I couldn't slam it. I had to pull it tight until I heard the latch engage. Click. I was out. I slumped against the wall of the corridor, gasping for air like a diver surfacing from deep water. I was shaking uncontrollably, and my hands, my knees, my lips, everything was trembling. I looked down at myself. I was standing barefoot in the hallway of an upscale Toronto condo building, holding my shoes, looking like a woman fleeing a crime scene. In a way, I was. The crime was the murder of my marriage. My suitcase was still there, propped against the wall where I'd left it 10 minutes ago. It felt like 10 years. The woman who left that suitcase there was a hopeful wife planning a surprise. The woman picking it up now was a widow. I jammed my feet into my heels. I didn't care if they were on properly. I grabbed the handle of the suitcase and walked toward the elevators. I pressed the down button. I prayed the elevator was still on this floor. It was. The doors opened instantly. I stepped in and jabbed the L button repeatedly. Close, close, close. The door slid shut just as I heard a faint sound from down the hall, the click of a door opening. Was it my door? Did Ryan hear the latch? I stared at the crack between the closing elevator doors, terrified that I would see his face appear, confused and sleepy, asking, Sneha? The door sealed. The elevator began to descend. I was safe, for now, as the numbers counted down. 15, 10, 5. The adrenaline that had kept me focused started to curdle into nausea. The reality of what I had just seen began to hit me in waves. Ryan, my Ryan, the man who wrote me poetry on our anniversary, The man who held my hand during turbulence on flights. The man I was planning to have children with next year. He was in bed with his cousin. His cousin. It was so perverse, so layered with betrayal that my brain couldn't process it. It wasn't just cheating. It was incestuous. It was a violation of family, of trust, of basic human decency. Ding. Lobby level. The doors open. I composed myself. I stood up straighter. I wiped the sheen of cold sweat from my forehead. I couldn't let Patrick see me break. I walked out of the elevator, the wheels of my suitcase clicking once again on the marble floor. Patrick was still at the desk. He looked up as I approached, his expression anxious. He scanned my face looking for clues. He saw the smudge of mascara I missed. He saw the slight tremor in my hand. He saw the pale, ghost-like cast skin. He knew. He definitely knew. "Mrs. Reynolds?" he asked, his voice tentative. "Leaving so soon?" I stopped at the desk. I looked him dead in the eye. I wondered how long he had known. How many times had he seen Chloe come in when I was away? How many times had he seen them go out together, looking a little too cosy? Did everyone know but me? Was I the punchline of the building's inside joke? "Yes, Patrick," I said. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, cold, detached, metallic. "I forgot something at the office in Vancouver. I have to fly back immediately." It was a terrible lie and absurd. You don't fly to Vancouver and back in 20 minutes to pick up a file. But Patrick didn't challenge it. He nodded vigorously, relieved to have an excuse not to ask the real question. "Right, of course, very busy schedule," he mumbled. "Do you need a cab?" "No," I said, gripping the handle of my suitcase until my knuckles turned white. "I'll walk." "Walk?" He glanced at the glass doors. "Mrs. Reynolds, it's barely 7 a.m. It's chilly out." "I need the air." I cut him off. "Have a good day, Patrick." I didn't wait for his reply. I turned and marched toward the exit. The automatic doors slid open and the city of Toronto hit me. The noise, the wind, the smell of exhaust and roasting coffee. It was a Tuesday morning. The city was waking up. People were rushing to work, holding Starbucks cups, checking their phones. Normal people living normal lives. I walked. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. I dragged my suitcase down the sidewalk, the wheels rumbling over the concrete. I walked 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks. I put distance between myself and that building, between myself and room 1804. I turned a corner onto a quieter side street lined with old brick warehouses converted into lofts. There were no people here yet. It was here in the shadow of an alleyway that my body finally gave up. The nausea surged up my throat like a tidal wave. I dropped my suitcase. I doubled over, clutching my stomach and retched. I vomited into the gutter. There was nothing in my stomach but bile and the acidic coffee I had on the plane. I heaved until my ribs ached, until tears streamed down my face, blinding me. How could he? The question finally tore itself out of my throat. How could you? I screamed at the empty street. How could you do this to me? My voice echoed off the brick walls. A few pigeons scattered. Startled. I sank down onto my knees on the cold pavement. I didn't care about my expensive suit. I didn't care about the dirt. I wrapped my arms around myself and rocked back and forth, sobbing. Not a polite, silent cry. This was an ugly, guttural, keen, the sound of a wounded animal. I cried for the 2 years we spent building a life. I cried for the trust I gave him so freely. I cried for the stupid, naive girl who thought she was coming home to a loving husband. That girl was dead. She died in room 1804. I checked my phone through blurred vision. 7:15 a.m. Ryan usually woke up at 7:30 for work. He would wake up soon. He would see the empty space beside him, or rather the filled space that shouldn't be filled. He would check his phone. He would see my texts from Vancouver. He would think he was safe. A cold fury began to replace the sorrow. He thinks he got away with it. He thinks I'm thousands of miles away, oblivious and happy. He's probably going to wake up, kiss her again, maybe have sex with her one more time before he goes to work, thinking he's the king of the world. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. I stood up. My legs were shaky, but they held me. I smoothed down my skirt. I fixed my hair. I looked at my reflection in a darkened shop window. I looked haunted, dark circles, red eyes, pale skin. But beneath the wreckage, I saw something else. Resolve. I wasn't going to let him win. I wasn't going to be the victim who collapses and fades away. I had the video. I had the truth and I had the element of surprise. I picked up my suitcase. I needed a base of operations. I couldn't go to a friend's house. I couldn't face the pity yet. I couldn't go to my parents. They would demand I leave him immediately, and I wasn't ready to show my hand. I needed a hotel, somewhere anonymous, somewhere close enough to watch him, but far enough to be hidden. I pulled out my phone and opened the Uber app. I typed in the destination, the Fairmont Royal York. It was a historic hotel, big, busy, easy to get lost in. As I waited for the car, my phone buzzed. I jumped, my heart skipping a beat. Was it him? I looked at the screen. It was a notification from our shared bank app. Transaction alert, Starbucks, $14.50. He was awake. He had just bought coffee. 2 coffees, judging by the price. One for him, one for her, using our joint account. The audacity was breathtaking. He was buying his mistress coffee with my money minutes after I had stood over their sleeping bodies. A bitter laugh bubbled up in my throat. Enjoy the coffee, Ryan, I thought. It's the last thing you will ever buy with my money. The Uber pulled up, a black sedan. I got in. Fairmont Royal York, please. As the car pulled away, I looked back toward the direction of my apartment one last time. The sun was fully up now. The city was bright and awake. The game had changed. I wasn't the wife anymore. I was the director of this show. And Ryan, he was just an actor who didn't know his lines were about to be cut. I leaned my head against the cool window glass. Now, the waiting game begins. I needed to wait for him to call me. I needed to act like nothing was wrong. I needed to put on the performance of a lifetime. I closed my eyes and rehearsed my line. Hey, honey, how did you sleep? I felt a surge of adrenaline. It was sickening, but it was fuel. Room 412 of the Fairmont Royal York was a study in sterile luxury. The wallpaper was a tasteful cream, the carpet a plush burgundy, and the bed, a king-sized expanse of white linens, looked like a cloud. It was the kind of room people booked for anniversaries, for business trips, for celebrations. I had booked it to mourn the death of my life. I threw my suitcase onto the luggage rack and didn't bother unpacking. I stripped off my clothes, the clothes I had worn on the plane, the clothes I had worn while standing in my own bedroom, watching my husband sleep with his cousin, and kicked them into a corner. I felt contaminated. It wasn't just a mental feeling, it was physical. I felt like there was a film of grime over my skin, a layer of betrayal that needed to be scrubbed off. I turned the shower onto the highest heat setting. I stepped in and let the scalding water hammer against my back. I scrubbed my skin until it was raw and red, wishing I could scrub away the memory of that morning. I wished I could wash away the image of Chloe's arm draped over his chest, the pink bra on the lampshade, the smell of that room. I stood there for 20 minutes, maybe 30, staring at the white tiles, letting the steam fill the bathroom until I could barely breathe. I didn't cry. I had cried in the alleyway. Now I was in a state of cold clinical shock. My brain was compartmentalizing, locking away the pain and bringing the logic to the forefront. Survival mode initiated. I stepped out of the shower, wrapped myself in the thick hotel robe and walked back into the main room. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone sitting on the nightstand. It was 8:45 a.m. Ryan would be at work by now, or maybe he took the day off to recover from his night of sin. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovered over the screen. I needed to establish my alibi. If I wanted to catch him, really catch him with legal leverage and financial safety, I needed him to believe I was still 3,000 miles away in Vancouver. I took a deep breath. I channeled every ounce of corporate training I had. I needed to be the senior executive Sneha, now cool, calculated, in control. I dialed his number. Ring, ring. Hey, babe. His voice was cheerful, too cheerful. It was the voice of a man who had a great night's sleep and a morning release. Good morning, I said. My voice didn't shake, and I was surprised by how steady it sounded. I didn't wake you, did I? No, I'm already at the office, he said. I could hear the faint clicking of a keyboard in the background. Just going through some emails. How are you? How's Vancouver? How's Vancouver? The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Vancouver is great, Ryan, but Toronto is fascinating this morning. It's rainy, I lied. I just woke up. I'm about to order breakfast. I missed you last night. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth, but I needed him to say it back. I needed to hear the depth of his deception. I missed you too, Sneha, he said, his voice dropping into that lower, intimate register he used when he wanted to be sweet. The bed feels huge without you. I barely slept. Strike one. I had a video of him sleeping like a baby wrapped around another woman. Or I cooed, feeling a surge of bile in my throat. I'm sorry, honey. Did you at least have a nice evening with Chloe? There was a pause, a microscopic hesitation that only a wife would notice. Yeah, it was chill, he said breezily. We just ordered pizza, watched a movie. She was pretty tired from studying, so she crashed early in the guest room. I think I was asleep by like 11. Strike two. That's good, I said. And is she still there or did she go to class? She left this morning, Ryan said. I dropped her off at the subway station on my way to work. She has a 9 a.m. lecture. Strike three. I knew for a fact he didn't drop her off. I had seen the Uber charge for his ride to work. Just a single ride, unless they shared an Uber. No, Chloe's campus was in the opposite direction of his firm. You're such a good cousin, I said, infusing my voice with fake admiration. Taking care of family like that? I love that about you. Yeah, well, family is everything, right? He chuckled. Family is everything. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He was sleeping with his family while betraying his wife. Listen, babe, he said, the keyboard clicking, stopping. I gotta jump into a meeting with the partners. But are we still on for tomorrow morning? Your flight lands at 6 a.m. Yes, I said, 6 a.m. sharp. Don't be late picking me up. I'll be there with bells on and maybe a coffee. Perfect. Love you. Love you too. Click. I stared at the phone screen as the call ended. I hate you. I whispered to the empty hotel room. I hate you so much. The adrenaline from the call started to fade, replaced by a restless energy. I couldn't just sit here for 24 hours waiting for the reveal. I needed to know more. I had the video. That was the smoking gun. But now I wanted the whole arsenal. I needed to know how long this had been going on. Was this a one-time drunken mistake or was I living in a fool's paradise for months? I opened my laptop. I connected to the hotel Wi-Fi. I felt like a hacker in a spy movie, but the reality was much sadder. I was just a wife with shared passwords. First stop, the credit card statement. We had a joint account for household expenses, but we also kept our personal credit cards. However, I knew his password for his personal Amex. He had given it to me once to book flights when his hands were full, and I had a photographic memory for numbers. I logged in. I scrolled through the last 3 months. Most of it was normal. Gas, groceries, Amazon. But then I saw the pattern. Uber Eats. There were multiple late night orders on weekends when I was away, not for one person. 2 burgers, 2 shakes, sushi platter for 2. Date. He was having date nights in our apartment while I was working. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Sephora. 3 weeks ago, a charge for $140. I never received anything from Sephora 3 weeks ago. My birthday was months away. Pandora jewellery. 2 months ago, $85. Cineplex. Odeon. A Tuesday night movie ticket, 2 adults. He was taking her out. He was buying her gifts. This wasn't just physical. This was a relationship. He was dating her. I felt a wave of humiliation wash over me. I thought I was the main character in his life, but I was just the financier. I was the one paying the mortgage so he could have a comfortable love nest for his affair. I closed the banking tab. I couldn't look anymore. I needed to see them. I needed to see his face when he wasn't acting for me on the phone. I opened Instagram. I went to Chloe's profile. It was private. Of course it was, but I followed her. I was her cool cousin-in-law. I scrolled through her feed. Selfies, food pics, party pics with friends, standard 19-year-old stuff. But then I looked closer. A photo from 2 weeks ago. Caption, dinner with my fave person. It was a picture of a pasta dish, but in the corner, barely visible, was a hand holding a wine glass. A man's hand wearing a watch, a Tag Heuer watch. The watch I bought Ryan for our first anniversary. I scrolled down. A photo from a month ago. A selfie in a bathroom mirror. She was wearing a hoodie, a grey oversized hoodie that looked suspiciously like Ryan's University of Waterloo alumni hoodie. The caption, borrowed, comfy. The comments were mostly from her friend. Cute. Who's the guy? Spill the tea. She had replied to one with a winking emoji. It's a secret. It was all there, hiding in plain sight. She was flaunting it. She was getting a thrill out of posting these little clues, knowing that I, the clueless old wife, would scroll right past them and double tap like an idiot. And I had literally liked the photo of the pasta. I felt sick. Suddenly, a notification popped up on my phone. Ping! It was from the Find My Friends app. We shared our locations. It was a safety thing. Just so I know you're safe when you're late at construction sites, I had told him. I looked at the map. Ryan's dot was moving. He was leaving his office. It was 12:30 p.m. lunchtime. Is he going to a client meeting? I zoomed in on the map. He was heading towards the University District, toward U of T, toward Chloe. My heart started to race. He wasn't having lunch with a client. He was having lunch with her. They couldn't stay apart for even 6 hours. I had a crazy thought. Go there. Go watch them. I was at the Fairmont. The university area was only a 10-minute Uber ride away. I could wear sunglasses, a scarf. I could sit in the back of a restaurant and watch them. No, I told myself, too risky. If he saw me, I would lose the element of surprise for tomorrow. Tomorrow was the end game. I couldn't blow it on a lunchtime recon mission, but I couldn't just sit here. The walls of the hotel room were starting to close in on me. I felt like a caged animal. I needed to do something. I needed to prepare for the explosion I was about to cause. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I never thought I would need. Peterson Associates, Family Law, how can I help you? Hi, I said, my voice steel. I need an urgent consultation today within the hour, if possible. I'm sorry, ma'am, Mr. Peterson is fully booked. Is this regarding a new file? It's regarding a divorce, I said, and a significant asset division. I have evidence of infidelity and incest. The receptionist paused. The word hung in the air like a bomb. I see, she stammered. Let me see what I can do. Can you hold? While I waited on hold, I walked to the window. From the 4th floor, I could see Front Street. Taxis were lining up. People were bustling about. Somewhere out there, Ryan was probably picking Chloe up right now. Maybe he was kissing her hello. Maybe they were holding hands under the table at some bistro, giggling about how they fooled. Enjoy your lunch, Ryan, I thought, pressing my forehead against the cold glass. Because tomorrow I'm serving you the bill. The receptionist came back on the line. Mr. Peterson can see you at 3 p.m. It will be a Zoom consult. Is that okay? That's perfect. I hung up. 3 p.m. I had 2 hours. I ordered room service, a club sandwich and a coffee. I needed fuel. I hadn't eaten since yesterday. When the food arrived, I forced myself to eat. Each bite was a struggle, but I chewed methodically. Eat, survive, fight. At 1:30 p.m, my phone buzzed again. A text from Ryan. Hey, babe. Just grabbing a quick sandwich at my desk. Busy day. Thinking of you. Hope you're having a good lunch. I stared at the screen. He was lying again. I checked. Find My Friends. His dot was at a trendy Italian restaurant on Bloor Street. Sotto. That was not a sandwich at his desk. That was a $100 lunch. And he was lying to me in real time. I decided to play with him. I typed back, oh, poor baby. Don't work too hard. I'm actually at a really nice Italian place here in Vancouver, eating pasta. Wish you were here to share it. I hit send. I waited. I wanted to see if the mention of Italian place would make him nervous. Would he think I knew? 3 dots appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. Ha, jealous. Enjoy the carbs for me. Love you. He didn't flinch. He was a sociopath. He could lie to my face or my screen without a second thought. The afternoon dragged on. The meeting with the lawyer was a blur of legal jargon. Adultery, matrimonial home, spousal support, forensic accounting. I told him everything. I told him about the video. Keep that video safe, Mr. Peterson said, his face grim on the laptop screen. Make copies. Save it to a drive he can't access. That is your golden ticket. In Canada, we have no fault divorce, but for settlements. And considering the nature of the relationship, it gives us leverage, massive leverage. He won't want that video seeing the light of day. No, I said, a dark smile touching my lips. He definitely won't. By the time the sun began to set over Toronto, casting long shadows across the hotel room, I felt exhausted but empowered. I had a plan. I had a lawyer. I had the evidence. But the hardest part was yet to come. Nighttime. I had to spend one more night alone in this hotel bed, knowing that just a few miles away, he was going home to her. He would be cooking dinner for her in my kitchen. They would be watching TV on my sofa. They would be sleeping in my bed. I poured myself a glass of wine from the minibar. $18 for a Merlot. I didn't care. I sat by the window and watched the city lights turn on one by one. My phone pinged. 7:30 p.m. It was a photo from Ryan. It was a picture of our living room. The TV was on. A glass of wine on the table. Caption, boring night alone. Miss you. Can't wait for tomorrow. I zoomed in on the photo. I scrutinised every pixel and then I saw it. In the reflection of the dark window glass in the far background of the photo, a silhouette. Someone walking past the kitchen island. It was blurry, but the long hair was unmistakable. Chloe? He was so arrogant, so careless that he didn't even check the reflection. He was sending me proof of his affair wrapped in a miss you text. I saved the photo. Another nail in the coffin. I finished my wine. I crawled into the big, empty hotel bed. I set my alarm for 4:30 a.m. Tomorrow was Wednesday. Tomorrow, the perfect wife was coming home, and she was bringing hell with her. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, rehearsing the scene over and over in my head. The curtain was about to rise on the final act. And Ryan Reynolds, he was about to give the performance of a lifetime, only to realise the audience already knew the end. 4:30 a.m. The alarm on my phone didn't even get the chance to ring. I was already awake, staring at the digital numbers as they flickered from 4:29 to 4:30. I hadn't slept. Not really. I had drifted in and out of a feverish doze, haunted by images of tangled limbs and the smell of cheap vanilla perfume. I threw the covers off. The hotel room was freezing, but my skin felt hot, prickly. Today was the day. Today, the simulation ends. I moved through the morning routine like a soldier preparing for deployment. I showered, washing my hair to ensure it looked travel-worn and not hotel fresh. I put on the same clothes I had worn yesterday, the blazer, the jeans, the blouse. They felt heavy, like a costume that didn't fit anymore. I reapplied my makeup, smudging the eyeliner slightly to mimic the exhaustion of a red-eye flight. I needed to look tired. I needed to look like a wife who just wants to go home to her husband. I grabbed my suitcase. It was still packed, save for the few toiletries I had used. I took one last look around room 412. Goodbye, Sneha, I whispered to the empty room. You can do this. I took the elevator down to the lobby. The Fairmont was quiet, the night shift staff moving like ghosts, polishing the brass railing. I checked out quickly, paying with my personal card so Ryan wouldn't see the notification. Heading to the airport, the receptionist asked, eyeing my suitcase, coming from... I lied, just a layover. I walked out into the pre-dawn darkness of Toronto. The air was biting, damp and cold. I hailed a cab. Pearson International Airport, I said. Terminal 1, arrivals level. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror, confused. Arrivals? You want to go to arrivals? Yes, I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. I'm meeting someone. I was meeting my past self, but I was staging the scene of the crime. The ride to the airport was a blur of highway lights and nerves. My stomach was twisting into knots so tight I thought I might snap in half. I was about to perform the greatest acting role of my life. I had to kiss him. I had to hug him. I had to sit in a car with him for 40 minutes and pretend I didn't know he was a monster. We pulled up to Terminal 1 at 5:45 a.m. Keep the change, I said, handing the driver a wad of cash. I wheeled my suitcase to Post C, the designated pickup spot I had texted Ryan earlier. I stood there shivering in the cold wind, watching the cars roll by. Every pair of headlights looked like his. Every black SUV made my heart jump. What if he brings her? The thought paralysed me for a second. What if she's in the car? No, he's too smart for that. He keeps his world separate. That's how he's gotten away with it for this long. 5:58 a.m. A black Audi Q5 turned the corner. Our car. I recognised the licence plate immediately. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Thump, thump, thump. I took a deep breath. Showtime. The car pulled up to the curb. Ryan was behind the wheel. He looked radiant. He was wearing a fresh white shirt, his hair perfectly styled, his face shaved. He looked like the handsome, successful architect I'd fallen in love with. He was smiling as he saw me, a genuine, warm smile. It was terrifying. How could a mask fit so perfectly? He put the car in park and jumped out. He jogged around the hood, arms open wide. Babe! He called out, his voice full of excitement. You made it! I forced my body to move. I forced the muscles in my face to curve into a smile. Ryan! He reached me and swept me into a hug. He lifted me off the ground slightly, spinning me a little. It was our thing, our reunion ritual. But as his arms wrapped around me, my skin crawled. I felt a wave of physical revulsion so strong, I almost gagged. I could smell him. He smelled of his expensive cologne, but underneath that, I swear I could smell her. It might have been my imagination, a phantom scent created by my trauma, but it smelled like betrayal. He put me down and leaned in for a kiss. I couldn't do it. I couldn't let his mouth touch mine. I turned my head at the last second, so his lips landed on my cheek. I'm so gross, I said quickly, pulling back. Airplane breath. I need to brush my teeth. Ryan laughed, not noticing my recoil. You're silly. You look beautiful. Tired, but beautiful. He grabbed my suitcase and tossed it into the trunk. God, I missed you. The apartment was like a tomb without you. A tomb, I thought, as I climbed into the passenger seat, or a brothel. He got into the driver's seat and merged back into the chaotic airport traffic. The car was warm. The heated seats were on. So, he said, reaching over to take my hand. His palm was warm, dry. How was the flight? Did you manage to sleep at all? I looked at our joined hands, his fingers interlaced with mine. The same fingers I had seen on the video, stroking Chloe's back. I wanted to rip my hand away. I wanted to scream. Instead, I squeezed his hand back lightly. It was okay. I lied. Turbulence over Winnipeg was rough. I mostly just listened to podcasts and dozed off. I'm exhausted. Well, you can crash as soon as we get home, he said soothingly. I'll make you some coffee, maybe some eggs, or do you just want to sleep? Coffee sounds good, I said. I turned to look out the window, unable to look at his face anymore. So, how was your Tuesday? Did you get that rendering done? Yeah, mostly, he said. He sounded relaxed, too relaxed. It was a quiet day, boring, honestly, just work. Then I came home, watched some TV and passed out. I was pretty tired from, the weekend. And Chloe, I asked, the name tasted like poison. She got back to campus, okay? I felt a tiny tension in his hand, a micro flinch. Yeah, he said, his eyes fixed on the road. She's good. She was stressing about that exam, but I told her she'd be fine. She's a smart kid. She is, I agreed. We should have her over more often. She seems lonely. I turned to look at him then. I wanted to see his reaction. He didn't panic. He just smiled, a little tight at the corners. Yeah, maybe, he said, but we need our alone time too. I feel like I haven't seen you in ages. He lifted my hand and kissed my knuckles. I felt a tear prick the corner of my eye, not from love, but from anger. Pure molten anger. He was so good at this. He was seamlessly weaving his affair into our marriage, making me invite the mistress back into our home. The drive down the Gardner Expressway felt endless. The CN Tower loomed ahead, a needle piercing the grey morning sky. Every mile closer to the apartment ratcheted up the tension in my chest. I was mentally scanning the apartment. Did he change the sheets? Did he pick up the wine glasses? Did he find the sock? What if I find a hair? You're quiet, Ryan noted, glancing at me. Everything okay? Just a headache, I murmured, thinking about work. My boss is already emailing. Ignore him, Ryan said firmly. You're home now. You're off the clock. Today is about us. Today's about us. Oh, Ryan, you have no idea. We pulled up to our condo building. It was 6:45 a.m. Exactly 24 hours since I had stood here yesterday watching the sunrise with a broken heart. Patrick wasn't at the desk. It was a new guy, a young security guard I didn't recognise. Thank God, I thought. No awkward questions. Ryan parked the car in our underground spot, P2 104. He grabbed my bag. We walked to the elevator. He pressed 18. The numbers climbed. 5, 10, 15. Oh, my heart was beating so loud. I was sure he could hear it in the confined space. He put his arm around my waist, pulling me close. Home, sweet home, he whispered into my ear. The elevator dinged. We walked down the long, grey hallway. My legs felt like lead. I was walking toward the scene of the crime. Ryan fished his keys out of his pocket. He didn't use the code when I was with him. He unlocked the door. He pushed it open. After you, madame, he said with a gallant bow. I stepped over the threshold. The apartment was silent. I scanned the foyer. My heels, the ones I had left on the rug yesterday, were gone. He must have put them away. Wait, if he put them away, did he notice they were moved? I had left them near the door on Sunday. On Tuesday, I moved them to the rug. Did he notice? I walked into the living room. It was spotless. The wine glasses were gone. The pizza box was gone. The blanket was folded neatly on the arm of the sofa. The floor was vacuumed. Chloe's sock? Gone. He had cleaned. He had erased the evidence. It was almost impressive. If I hadn't seen the chaos with my own eyes 24 hours ago, I would never have known. Place looks great, I said, running a finger along the back of the sofa. You really did tidy up. Told you, Ryan grinned, rolling my suitcase into the bedroom. I wanted it perfect for you. I followed him into the bedroom. The master bedroom. The bed was made with military precision. The duvet was crisp. The pillows were fluff. But as I walked in, I stopped. The air. He had opened the window. It was chilly in the room. And there was a scent. Not vanilla this time. Febreze. Heavy chemical. Linen sky Febreze. He was trying to mask the smell. It's a bit cold in here, I said, hugging myself. Oh yeah, I aired it out a bit, Ryan said, hoisting my bag onto the luggage rack. It was getting a bit stuffy. Stuffy, right? I sat down on the edge of the bed. The bed I ran my hand over the sheets. They were different sheets. When I left on Saturday, we had the grey cotton sheets. These were the white silk ones. He had changed the bedding. You changed the sheets? I asked, looking up at him. Ryan froze just for a second. He was hanging his jacket in the closet, his back to me. Yeah, he said casually, not turning around immediately. I spilled some coffee on the other ones yesterday morning. Clumsy me. Coffee. On the bed? I asked. You never drink coffee in bed. You say it's a crumb risk. He turned around then, his smile a little thick, a little too bright. I know. I was just being lazy. Learned my lesson though. Had to do a massive load of laundry. He walked over to me and crouched down, placing his hands on my knees. He looked up into my eyes with that soulful puppy dog expression that used to melt my heart. Hey, he said softly, stop interrogating the house. You're home. I'm here. We're good. I looked at him. He was so confident, so sure he had covered his tracks. He thought he had scrubbed the crime scene clean, but he missed one thing. He didn't know I had the video, and he didn't know about the bathroom. I stood up abruptly. I need to pee, I said, and then I want that coffee. Coming right up, he said, standing up and heading toward the kitchen. Cappuccino. Black, I said. I need it strong. I walked into the ensuite bathroom. This was the only place I hadn't checked yesterday. I was too afraid to go in there with them sleeping 10 feet away. But if Chloe was here for 3 days, if she showered here, girls leave traces, we shed, we use products, we leave bobby pins. I locked the door. I scanned the counter. Clean, his razor, my creams, everything in place. I checked the shower, scrubbed. No hair in the drain. He was thorough. I opened the small trash can under the sink. Empty, fresh bag. I opened the medicine cabinet. My pills, his deodorant. Everything normal. I felt a surge of frustration. Did he really get everything? I looked down at the floor, the fluffy white bath mat. It looked freshly fluffed. I knelt down. I ran my fingers through the deep pile of the rug. Nothing. Wait, near the edge, caught in the fibres of the weave underneath the rim of the cabinet, a glint of something metallic. I pulled it out. It was an earring, a small, cheap gold hoop with a tiny fake diamond star. It wasn't mine. I only wear platinum or white gold, and I don't wear hoop. It was hers. I had seen it in her Instagram photos, the Starry Night collection. I clutched the earring in my fist. The metal dug into my palm. This was it, the physical proof. The video was digital. This was tangible. She was here in my bathroom, taking off her jewellery to shower, or to do other things. I stood up. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were hard, cold. The fear was gone. The nausea was gone. All that was left was the kill. I put the earring in my pocket. I unlocked the door and walked out into the bedroom. Ryan was in the kitchen whistling. I could hear the milk frother whirring. Almost ready, he called out. I walked to the closet, his side of the closet. Ryan, I called out, my voice loud enough to carry to the kitchen. Yeah, babe, where's my iPad? I asked. I left it on your nightstand before I left. I wanted to check something. Should be there, he yelled back. Check the drawer. I opened his nightstand drawer. Condoms. We stopped using condoms 6 months ago because we were talking about trying for a baby. The box was open. 3 were missing and my hand shook as I closed the drawer. Three times. I walked out of the bedroom and into the living room. Ryan was pouring the coffee into 2 mugs. He looked up, smiling. Found it? No, I said, walking slowly toward the kitchen island. I kept my hand in my pocket, fingering the sharp point of the earring. But I found something else. Ryan's smile faltered. Just a fraction. What? I stopped right in front of him. The granite island was the only thing separating us. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I pulled my hand out of my pocket. I opened my palm. The tiny gold earring sat there, gleaming under the kitchen pendant light. This, I said softly. Ryan looked down, his eyes focused on the earring. I watched his face. I watched the blood drain from it. I watched the confidence evaporate like mist. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. He looked at the earring, then at me, then back at the earring. There was no, what's that? There was no, is that yours? He knew. And he knew that I knew. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. The only sound was the refrigerator humming and the frantic thumping of my own heart. This was the cliff. We were both standing on the edge. Sneha, he started, his voice cracking. It wasn't the smooth, charming voice anymore. It was the voice of a man falling. That's not, Don't, I whispered. Don't you dare lie to me right now. Not about this. I reached into my other pocket and pulled out my phone. I unlocked it. I tapped the video. I turned the volume up to maximum. I placed the phone on the counter, screen facing him. The sound of his own snoring filled the kitchen. Then the video panned to the clothes on the floor, to the bra on the lamp, to him, to Chloe, to the intimacy. Ryan stared at the screen. His eyes went wide, horrific saucers of panic. He looked like he was watching his own execution. The video ended. The screen went black. He looked up at me. He was pale, sweating. He looked like a stranger. Sneha, he gasped, reaching a hand out across the counter. Please, I can explain. It was a mistake. It's not a mistake, I asked, my voice rising now, trembling with the force of the storm I had been holding back for 24 hours. A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash, Ryan. A mistake is leaving the milk out. I leaned in, my face inches from his. Sleeping with your 19-year-old cousin in my bed for 3 days while I'm working to pay for this roof over your head. That's not a mistake. I grabbed the coffee mug he had just poured for me. The hot, steaming black coffee. That, I said, my voice dropping to a terrifying whisper, is a death sentence. I didn't drink the coffee. I poured it slowly, deliberately onto the floor. Onto the spot where I had found her sock yesterday. The dark liquid pooled on the pristine hardwood, spreading like a stain, like the rot in our marriage. Pack a bag, I said. You have 10 minutes. Ryan didn't move. He stood there, paralysed, destroyed, but the look in his eyes wasn't just fear. It was something darker. For the first time, I saw a flash of anger. The cornered rat was about to bite back. And if I don't, he challenged, his voice low, dangerous. I smiled, a cold, mirthless smile. Well, then I send that video to your mother, to your boss, and to Chloe's father. The colour left his face completely. I had him. But as I watched him tremble, I realised one thing. The man standing before me wasn't just a cheater. He was desperate, and desperate men do dangerous things. 10 minutes, Ryan. I repeated, tick-tock, tick-tock. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. The kitchen, once the heart of our home, now felt like a cage match. Ryan was staring at me, his chest heaving, his hands gripping the edge of the granite island so hard his knuckles were white. For a moment, I thought he was going to hit me. I saw the violence flare behind his eyes, the primal cornered animal instinct to silence the threat. I tensed, my hand hovering over the send button on my phone. You wouldn't, he hissed, his voice low and venomous. You wouldn't destroy my life over this. Think about what you're doing, Sneha. Think about the humiliation, not just for me, for us. Us. I let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. There is no us, Ryan. Us died the second you invited her into our bed. And humiliation, oh, honey, you haven't tasted humiliation yet. Wait until your mother sees the high-definition footage of her son and her niece. Ryan flinched as if I'd slapped him. She's family. You're sick. Recording us while we slept. That's illegal. I could sue you. Go ahead, I challenged, leaning forward, my eyes locking onto his. Call a lawyer, please. I'd love to explain to a judge why I was recording. I'd love to show the court the texts, the Uber receipts, the bank statements I downloaded yesterday. You want to talk about illegal? Incest is a grey area legally, Ryan, but socially it's a nuclear bomb. And I have my finger on the button. He stared at me, searching for a crack in my armour. He was looking for the weeping, broken wife who would beg him to stay. He was looking for the woman he could manipulate with a hug and a few tears. But that woman was gone. You were always cold, he spat, his face twisting into an ugly sneer. Always working, always travelling. Did you really think I'd sit here alone like a monk waiting for you? Chloe, she was there. She was warm. She appreciated me. She's 19, Ryan, I screamed, the control finally slipping just a fraction. She's a child, and she's your blood relative. Don't you dare try to justify this with my work schedule. You're not a victim. You're a predator. I glanced at the microwave clock. 7 minutes, pack, now. He glared at me for one last second, pure hatred radiating from him. Then he spun around and stormed into the bedroom. I didn't follow him. I stayed in the kitchen, guarding the exit. I heard drawers being ripped open. I heard hangers clattering to the floor. I heard the zipper of a duffel bag. While he packed, I went to work. I opened the banking app. I transferred every cent from our joint savings account, the down payment for the cottage we were going to buy, into my personal account. Click. Transfer complete. I cancelled his supplementary credit card. Click. Card deactivated. I logged into the Smart Lock app and deleted his access code. Click. User removed. I was dismantling his life in real time, swipe by swipe. 5 minutes later, he emerged. He was carrying a gym bag and his laptop case. He looked dishevelled, frantic. He stopped at the door. He looked back at me. For a second, the anger faded, replaced by a pathetic, pleading look. Sneha, he said, his voice breaking. Where am I supposed to go? It's over, okay? I'll cut her off, I promise. We can fix this. Don't throw away 2 years. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the man I had vowed to love forever, and I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just a profound, exhausting disgust. You didn't just throw away 2 years, Ryan, I said softly. You burned them. You have no home here. Get out. He stared at me, realising finally that his charm had no currency here. His face hardened again. You'll regret this, he muttered. You're going to be a lonely, bitter divorcee. And you... I smiled ice cold. Are going to be famous. I held up my phone. Leave, or I hit send. He turned and fled. He yanked the door open and disappeared into the hallway. I walked over and slammed the door shut. I turned the deadbolt. Then I engaged the physical security latch. I stood there for a moment, listening to his footsteps fade toward the elevator. Silence rushed back into the apartment. It was done. I slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor. I thought I would cry. I waited for the tears, but they didn't come. Instead, a strange, hysterical laughter bubbled up. I was free. It was a violent, bloody freedom, but it was freedom nonetheless. But the story wasn't over. Ryan thought the threat was just to get him to leave. He thought I would cool down. He thought he could spin the narrative, tell people we grew apart, tell people I was crazy. He was wrong. I stood up, I walked to the living room and poured myself a glass of whiskey. It was 7:30 a.m. I didn't care. I sat on my sofa, and opened my laptop. Mr. Peterson, my lawyer, had given me specific advice. Don't publish the video publicly. It opens you up to liability, but you can share it with relevant parties for personal reasons. Relevant parties. I drafted an email. Subject, regarding the sleeping arrangements. Attachment, video_evidence_final.mp4. I added one recipient. Chloe.m@utoronto.ca. I wrote a short message. Hi, Chloe, I found your earring and I found this. I assume you don't want your parents or the dean of your university to see this. Stay away from my husband. Stay away from me. If I ever see you near my property again, this video goes to the family group chat. Have a nice semester. Sent. Then I texted Ryan. I've secured the apartment. The locks are changed. My lawyer will be in touch by noon. Do not contact me. Do not come here. If you do, I call the police and show them the video. Goodbye, Ryan. Block. I spent the next 3 days in a blur of activity. I had the locks physically changed by a locksmith. I had a cleaning crew come in and deep clean the entire apartment. I told them to burn the sheets. I sold the mattress. I couldn't sleep on it. I bought a new one, firm, expensive, and mine alone. 2 weeks later, the fallout began. Ryan tried to fight. He hired a cheap lawyer who sent threatening letters demanding spousal support, claiming he was accustomed to a lifestyle. Mr. Peterson laughed them out of the room. We showed his lawyer a screenshot of the video. Mr. Peterson told me over the phone, his voice gleeful. Just a screenshot. Ryan's lawyer went pale and said they would reconsider their position. Ryan is signing the separation agreement. He's walking away with nothing. He's terrified you'll leak it. Good, I said, sipping my coffee on the balcony. I heard through the grapevine mutual friends who took my side instantly that Ryan was crashing on a friend's couch. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. And Chloe, she had transferred universities. Apparently, she needed a fresh start in a different province. My email had worked. The fear of exposure was a powerful motivator. 3 months passed. The divorce was finalised in record time. I kept the condo. I kept the car. I kept my dignity. One Tuesday morning, exactly 3 months after the surprise, I was walking to work. The air was crisp, the leaves turning gold. Toronto was beautiful. I stopped at a coffee shop. As I waited for my latte, I saw him, Ryan. He was standing on the other side of the street, waiting for the light to change. He looked diminished. His suit was ill-fitting. His hair was messy. He looked older. He was holding a cup of Tim Hortons coffee, looking at his phone with a frown. He looked up. Our eyes met across the busy intersection. The traffic rushed between us. Cars, streetcars, cyclists. A river of noise separating my world from his. I saw him take a step forward, as if to wave, as if to mouth, Sneha. He looked like he wanted forgiveness. He looked like he wanted to come home. I didn't wave. I didn't frown. I simply raised my sunglasses, placed them over my eyes and turned away. I walked into the crowd, my heels clicking rhythmically on the pavement. Click, click, click. I didn't look back. I didn't need to know where he was going. I knew where I was going. I was going to my office, then I was going to my gym, then I was going to my beautiful, quiet, clean apartment to drink wine and watch a movie without wondering who was lying to me. The perfect marriage was a lie, but the perfect divorce, that was real. And as I emerged into the flow of the city, I realised something. The suspense was over, the horror movie had ended, and for the first time in 2 years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was just walking. I took a deep breath of the cold city air. It tasted like victory.